They told you China's digital currency was just another tech experiment. They told you it was about convenience, about modernization, about catching up to the West's financial innovation. They lied to you. What's actually happening right now, in the shadows of global finance, is the systematic dismantling of the dollar's 70-year reign as the world's reserve currency. And when that falls, the $318 trillion in American debt doesn't just become a number in a textbook. It becomes your pension, your savings account, your job, your future. The digital yuan isn't a currency, it's a weapon. And it just went live across 140 countries while you were scrolling through videos about stock market tips and retirement planning. While financial media fed you stories about inflation cooling and soft landings, China quietly built the infrastructure to replace the dollar in international trade. Not someday. Not in some distant future your grandchildren will worry about. Right now. This month, this week. But here's what they're not telling you. Here's the part that should make your blood run cold. The reason you should unsell everything and run for the hills yet isn't because things are going to be okay. It's because the collapse is designed to happen in stages. And if you move too early, you'll be exactly where they want you. Broke, panicked, and completely dependent on whatever new system they roll out to replace the one they're about to destroy. Let's start with what you think you know. You think the dollar is strong because that's what they tell you. You think American debt is manageable because economists with Ivy League degrees smile on television and use words like sustainable and structural adjustments. You think your savings are safe because they're insured, because there are regulations, because we learned our lesson in 2008. Every single one of those beliefs is a comfortable lie designed to keep you passive while the greatest wealth transfer in human history unfolds around you. The digital yuan launched its cross-border payment system in 2019. You didn't hear about it because Western media buried the story under celebrity gossip and political theater. By 2021, it was processing billions in international transactions. By 2023, it had partnerships with Russia, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, and most of Africa. Countries that collectively represent more than half the world's population and resources. They're not using it because it's better technology. They're using it because it lets them trade without American banks, without SWIFT, without dollar settlements, without asking permission from Washington. Every transaction that bypasses the dollar is a cut, a small wound in the system that's kept America's debt machine running for 7 decades. Individually, these cuts mean nothing. Collectively, they're arterial, and the blood is already flowing. Here's what happens when reserve currency status dies. It's not a crash. It's not a single day when markets collapse and everyone realizes it's over. It's a slow suffocation. First, international demand for dollars drops. Slightly, imperceptibly, central banks around the world hold fewer treasury bonds. They diversify. They hedge. They quietly prepare for a world where the dollar isn't the only option. Then American interest rates have to rise to keep attracting buyers. The government needs to pay more to service the same debt. $318 trillion in total debt obligations, including unfunded liabilities, suddenly cost more every single month. That cost gets passed to you. Higher taxes, reduced services, inflated prices. Geopolitical tensions, pandemic aftershocks, anything but the truth. Anything but admitting that the entire system is built on a foundation that's crumbling in real time. It's ancient. Every empire that issues the world's reserve currency believes it's different. Rome thought the denarius would last forever. They kept minting coins with less silver, convinced no one would notice. Britain thought the pound sterling was eternal. They printed through 2 world wars and a collapsing empire, shocked when the dollar replaced them in 1944. Now it's America's turn. And just like Rome, just like Britain, the people in charge believe they can manage the decline. They believe they can print their way out. They believe the world has no choice but to accept dollars because there's no alternative. China just gave them an alternative. The Chinese Communist Party isn't stupid. They watched Gaddafi get destroyed after proposing an African gold dinar. They learned the lesson: you don't challenge the dollar directly. You don't make speeches about replacing it. You don't give Washington an obvious enemy to rally against. You build the infrastructure quietly. You make it convenient. You make it faster, cheaper, and more efficient for countries that are tired of being sanctioned, monitored, and controlled by American financial institutions. You let economics do the work. And it's working. You were supposed to trust that smart people in Washington had everything under control. Not Washington. Here's where it gets personal. Here's where the macro nightmare becomes your problem. When the dollar loses reserve status, the government loses its ability to print without consequence. Your rent doubles. Your car payment, insurance, utilities, everything you need to survive suddenly costs twice as much while your salary stays exactly the same. Companies can't afford to operate. Layoffs spread like wildfire. Unemployment spikes. That's why you don't sell yet. Not because things are fine. Not because there's still time. But because the collapse is controlled, staged. The people orchestrating this want maximum chaos at minimum cost to themselves. They want you desperate enough to accept whatever solution they offer. Digital currencies tied to social credit, universal basic income that controls what you can buy, central bank digital dollars that expire if you don't spend them. A new system where financial freedom is a memory and every transaction you make is monitored, controlled, and taxed in real time. The pattern always ends the same way. Currency dies, debt defaults. Nations reset. The middle class gets destroyed. And a new system emerges that benefits the same families and institutions that controlled the old one. It happened after Rome fell, after the British Empire collapsed, after Weimar Germany. After every major empire in history, the names change, the technology changes. But the outcome is always identical. Wealth consolidates at the top. Everyone else starts over with nothing. China's digital yuan isn't the cause, it's the trigger. The debt was already unsustainable, the dollar was already dying. The Federal Reserve was already trapped between inflation and recession with no way out. China just accelerated the timeline. They forced the issue. And now the clock is ticking faster than anyone in Washington wants to admit. You're watching the early stages of a currency war that will reshape the entire global order. Not in theory, not in some distant future, right now, this year. The next 12 to 24 months will determine who survives this transition and who gets completely wiped out. Every decision you make about where to keep your money, what assets you hold, how you prepare for what's coming, all of it matters more than it ever has in your lifetime. But the moment you panic, the moment you make emotional decisions based on fear, you lose. That's what they're counting on. They want you scared. They want you confused. They want you selling low and buying whatever garbage assets they're unloading. They want you dependent on government assistance and corporate employers and a system that owns you completely. The only way out is information. Understanding what's actually happening beneath the surface, seeing the patterns they don't want you to see, recognizing that this isn't a natural cycle or an unfortunate series of events. It's engineered, deliberate. And it's been in motion for longer than most people realize. Everything you thought was solid is breaking. The institutions you trusted are failing. The experts who promised stability were either lying or delusional. And the future you planned for, the retirement you saved for, the security you thought you earned, all of it is evaporating in real time. But here's what they didn't count on. Here's the part that keeps them awake at night. Some people see it coming, some people prepare. Some people refuse to be the victims of a system that views them as nothing more than resources to be extracted and discarded. Some people learn the rules of the game and play it better than the people who created it. The question isn't whether the collapse is coming. It already started. The question is whether you'll see it in time to do anything about it. Whether you'll recognize the warning signs before it's too late. Whether you'll have the courage to act while everyone around you is still pretending everything is fine. China's digital yuan just changed the entire playing field. The $318 trillion debt bomb is already ticking. And the people who created this mess are quietly moving their pieces off the board while you still trying to figure out what game you replaying. What happens next will determine everything, your future. Your family's future. Whether you survive this transition or become another casualty in the greatest wealth transfer in human history. And the next move isn't what you think it is.